All right. So last class we left off by looking at three different representations and how to evaluate inverse functions. In this next section of guided notes, I'm going to show you how to actually, find individual values, whether we give you an input or an output, for original and inverse functions. So let's begin by looking at number 8. We want to start by looking at part A. In part A, we are going to plug in 3. In this case, 3 is our input. So to evaluate this, you're going to replace 3. You're going to plug it into every x, right? So instead of x minus 1, it's going to be 3 minus 1. So this is the general setup. To solve this, make sure that you are following order of operations. That's going to be PEMDAS. So PEMDAS, PEMDAS. That's going to require us to start by simplifying the inside of the parentheses, which is 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. We get 2 to the third power plus 4. 2 to the third power, what is that equal to? Raising your hand. Jacob. 8. So 2 to the third is 8. 8 plus 4 is going to give you a total of 12. So we find that f of 3 is 12. So it's very straightforward. When we give you an input, we just ask you to plug that in place of x and solve. And the steps, once again, you are following order of operations to get that solution. Now, in the next problem, we ask the question in a different way. Instead of asking you, what is f of something? We tell you, or we ask you, for what values of x is our function going to equal a number? In this case, 31 is not an input. 31 is an output. So in order to solve this problem, you're going to do what with your function? Are you going to plug in 31? Or what are you going to do? What are you going to do, Gabriel? What do we do with 31? We plug it in? So what do we do with it? Take it apart? That's a good guess. No. What do we do with it? Just where does the 31 go? If it doesn't go inside of the parentheses, then where does it go? Okay, as an output, but what does that mean? It equals. That's what I'm looking for. It equals. You set it equal. So we're going to do f of x, which is x minus 1 to the third plus 4. And we're going to set that equal to 31. Now, there's a big difference between solving this and what we just solved before, because we're not using forward PEMDAS, like we're not doing order of operations forwards. We're doing it backwards. We're doing using SADMAP. Okay. Now, the S in SADMAP is for subtraction, so we begin by subtracting 4 from both sides. We get x minus 1 to the third power equals 27. Cross that out. We don't have anything to divide or multiply, so we want to cancel out that cube. How do we cancel out the cube? What is the opposite? What is the inverse of raising something to the third power? Raising your hand. What is the inverse? Posada, you think you got it? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. What is the inverse? Square root would be for a square. If this is a cube, then we do what? Cube root. We take the cube root of both sides. Yeah, very good. So that's going to cancel out, and we'll be left with x minus 1 equals what number times itself 3 times gives you 27? Not 9. 9 times 3 gives you 27. 3 times 3 times 3 gives you 27. Okay, so we just finish off by adding 1 on both sides, and x we find is equal to 4. Yep. So far, nothing that you've seen so far right now is new. This is all review of like Unit 1, which is stuff we did last semester. But we're going to extend this to what we're seeing in this unit. So let's go ahead and look at the next example. Now, when x is equal to 3, the output is 12. So if we were to make a table, when x equals 3, the output is 12. Next, we found in part B that when x equals 4, what is the output? 31. So we have 3, 12, 4, 31. This is what I'm going to have you guys do. Okay, I'm going to split you off in different groups. I'm going to have some of you guys work on finding f of 1, some of you finding f of 2, and then the rest of you finding f of 5. So I'm going to have these two tables right here. You're solving for f of 1. You have a minute. You guys are finding f of 2. These two tables. You guys, the rest of you are finding f of 5. So individually, plug in a 5 and solve for it. In 1 minute, I'm going to call on different people from different tables to give me what they got. All right? So once again, you guys are doing f of 1. You guys are doing f of 2. F of 3. Or not f of 3. F of 5. All right, let's go 20 seconds. You're only doing one input. What'd you think of the guess my number thing from the one we did in 4th period? Yeah. Like a riddle kind of. Yeah, yeah. All right. So anyone for f of 1? Anyone in these two tables? F of 1. What is f of 1 equal to? F of 1 is equal to 4. Very good. Okay, let me see from these two tables. Anyone for f of 2? What is f of 2 equal to? Anyone here? Atticus. 5. And then anybody from the remainder tables that could tell me what f of 5 is equal to? Gabriel? What is it? 68. Okay. Very good. All right, so we have successfully made our input and output table for the original function f of x. It is now our goal to write the inverse table. Now, lucky for us, we don't actually have to do any calculations because in the last class we discovered that the inverse table is actually the original, but what did we do with the values? We swapped them, right? The x became the y became the x. So we're going to rewrite these columns, but just in separate places. So like the x column is going to go under f inverse of x. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the f of x will go under x. 4, 5, 12, 31, and 68. Okay. Now, for the next two questions, we are solely going to refer to the inverse table to answer them. All right? Okay. So, like I said, you're going to refer back to the inverse table, not the original table. Okay, I want everyone looking at part E. What is the value of f inverse of 5? Before you answer that, what is 5? Is 5 an input or an output? 5 is an input. So we are looking for 5 in the input column, which is the left column. So I want everyone to look for 5 in the input column. So we're looking here under the x's. We see 5 is right here. What is the number that is attached with the 5? 2. So your solution is going to equal 2. If 5 is the input, then 2 is the output. Okay? All right. Next question, for what values of x is f inverse of x equal to -1? This is a typo. Change that -1 to a +1. And now let me ask you the following. Is +1, this value that I give you, is it an input or is it an output? Good, it's an output. So this is an output. So you're going to look for a positive 1, not on the input side, but on the output side of the table. Where do we see 1? Right here, right? 1 is right there. The number associated with 1 is 4. So your solution is x equals 4 or 4. All right? Okay. Any questions before we move on? All right. So before I let you guys go ahead and work on the red light, green light, I need to give you some pointers. For problem number 1, you need to make an inverse table for this table that is provided for you. So I want everyone to make a second table and label that x and k inverse of x. You're going to take the values that are already given to you and you're going to use those to write your inverse table. That way you can go ahead and answer the questions. Okay. While you guys do that, let me go over the instructions for the next activity. You're going to have one person grab a whiteboard and a marker from over here. And then the youngest person at your table is going to go over part A. The person to the right of that person, like, is going to be the next person to go, right? So the youngest person does A, person to the right does B, then C, and then D. Once you've finished all those 4 parts, you're going to call us over. We're going to check your work and give you the green light to move on to the next question. All of your work, let me be clear, all of your work needs to be shown on the whiteboard first. And then after we give you the green light, you can write it into your packets, just to make sure that you guys are getting the correct answers, and that way you're not erasing all the work on the packets. Make sense? All right, so at this time, pick one person to come grab the materials, and then you guys can go ahead and get started.